On March 20th, 2021, 25-year-old Forrest Scorderate and his 22-year-old brother, Lake, were skiing with a group of friends in the mountains of the Swiss canton of Valais, in the Val d'Anivier Valley near the village of Saint-Luc. Both of them were wearing GoPros and recording their descent when, all of a sudden, a powerful avalanche broke loose and took them completely by surprise. What happened next is absolutely disturbing. Lake was buried deep beneath the snow, while his brother Forrest somehow managed to remain on the surface. Forrest was also caught in the avalanche, but incredibly, he wasn't fully buried. When he managed to stop and turned around, there was no sign of his brother anywhere. That's when the panic set in. From that moment on, the clock was ticking. He knew he had to find Lake as quickly as possible. In avalanche situations, every single minute matters. The longer someone remains buried under the snow, the smaller their chances of survival. What followed was a desperate race against time, driven by adrenaline, fear, and the determination to save his brother before it was too late.
Il est où, Lake? Il est où, Lake? Il est où, Lake? Non! Les gars! Eh, je me mets en recherche! Appelle les secours, je me mets en recherche! Appelle les secours! J'ai un signal! J'ai un signal! On drop! Lake, on va te sortir de là!
Descends pas trop bas, reste au pied.
Ouais. Et toi, si jamais tu le rallumes, si j'ai rien. Appelle l'hélico, hein! Lake, on est là, Lake! C'est bon, il est là! On y va! Lake, je vais te sauver, je te promets! Je te le promets, Lake, on est là!
Sois précis!
Je suis à un 7, Sors tout!
Je l'ai, creuse ici!
Ok! Lake, on est là!
Lake!
On t'aime!
Thankfully, they were both wearing avalanche transceivers, something that would soon make all the difference. It was the smartest decision they could have made that day. Using his beacon, Forrest quickly switched to search mode and was able to locate the exact signal coming from beneath the snow. The numbers on the tracker guided him straight to his buried brother. With the help of another skier nearby, they immediately started digging. Time was critical. Every second felt longer than the last, especially as his brother remained unresponsive beneath the snow.
Lake, tu restes calme! Reste calme, Lake! Allez, Lake! Reste calme! Reste calme, Lake!
Et Paul, on est en train de le trouver là, on est en train
Ça
de
marche.
regarder.
Il est plus haut.
Vas-y. Allez, Lake!
Creuse, j'arrive pas!
Ah oui,
Lake, tu nous entends?
Lake, ça va? Si t'arrives à toucher ma main? Putain! Débrouille là! Allez les gars!
Ouais.
Lake!
Ah, Lake, reste calme. Même si tu nous entends, reste calme.
On l'a vu, on a vu la bouche. Ah, il bouge. Je l'ai vu bouger.
Lake, tu m'entends?
Ça va, Lake?
Dis-moi juste quelque chose. Ça va? Lake, réponds-moi. Réponds-moi, Lake.
On déblaye bien, on fait ça.
L'hélico, il arrive. Tout est bon, mec. L'hélico, il est là. L'hélico, il est là. Tu restes avec moi, ok? Et respire.
On fait une plateforme devant nous là et on fait un demi-tour.
Thankfully, they were able to find Lake in time. He had only lost consciousness briefly, and after being pulled from beneath the snow, he soon regained awareness.
Maintenant, calmos. Voilà. L'épaule, ça va? Maintenant, tu vas te mettre comme ça.
This video really shows how important it is to never do these kinds of things alone and to always have the right gear with you. There was no way they could have heard Lake under that thick snow, and without the transceivers, we can honestly say he wouldn't have had a chance of survival. It's so disturbing to think about looking back and not seeing your brother. I can't even imagine how Forrest felt in that moment. I'm sure it left a trauma he'll never forget, and he'll always stay close and watch over his little brother. We also need to appreciate the other skiers who were there to help. They made all the difference. On November 29th, 2012, Paula and her 44-year-old boyfriend, Roderick Clifton, were staying at his mother's house in Citrus Heights, California. That day, Paula's mother had invited them over for dinner, so they packed up and started the long journey, over 100 miles, to Gardnerville, Nevada. They drove through the mountains, taking a few stops along the way to enjoy the views. Even with the breaks, they were on track to get there well before dinner. Rod decided to take a short detour to Burnside Lake, where things started to go wrong. The road was blocked with a gate and thick ice, clearly closed for the season. But Rod, familiar with the area from summer trips and eager to test his Jeep in the snow, drove around the gate, a choice that would soon have serious consequences. At first, everything seemed fine, and they reached the lake around 7 p.m. But the snow was much deeper and softer than expected. When they tried to turn the Jeep around, the front left tire got stuck. Hours of trying to free it went nowhere. As the temperature dropped rapidly from the 60 degrees Fahrenheit they had left behind, they realized they were unprepared for the night, wearing only fall clothes, without enough food, and with no cell service. They huddled inside the Jeep as a brutal snowstorm moved in. The next day, November 30th, Rod decided to try finding help. He set off on foot through waist-deep snow for what would have been a nearly 6-mile trek, promising Paula he'd be back in a few hours. But he never returned. Alone, Paula had to fight to survive. She ate a few green tomatoes she had brought with her, used snow for water, and wrapped herself in every blanket and piece of clothing she could find. The cold, the storm, and the isolation slowly chipped away at her hope. By December 1st, she used the last of her camera's battery to record a message for her family, unsure if anyone would ever find her.
I'm on my voice. It is now Sunday morning, and the snow has not let up. It's about 6.5 feet deep, I think. And I'm held up here in the Jeep. I'm eating a green tomato a day. I'm eating as much snow as I can remember to, and trying to stay warm. I just want to come home. Rod left Friday morning. Today's Sunday. Rod left Friday morning to go get help and didn't come back. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got hypothermia and frostbite, or if some critter got him. But I can't walk out in this because I don't have the clothing. And I mean, I feel fine. I'm not delirious, and I just have a hard time keeping my feet warm because I don't have any socks. I have them taped up. But as soon as the sun comes out, I'm going to have to try to make it. It's 7 miles and 6 feet of snow. I don't think I'm going to do so well, but nobody's ever going to find me here at Burnside Lake.
Luckily, the storm finally eased on the morning of December 2nd, giving Paula a glimmer of hope and the will to try and save herself. She packed a small backpack with whatever essentials she could find, scissors, a flashlight, and even fashioned gloves and socks out of masking tape and tissue, preparing herself for the treacherous journey ahead. As she set out into the snow, the weight of the days alone and the brutal cold pressed down on her, but she refused to stay trapped. The trek was far more grueling than she could have imagined. With every step, she sank deeper into the snow, forcing her to crawl at times and rely on her backpack for support, while her body, weakened from days without proper food and exposed to freezing temperatures, fought to keep moving. Hours passed and the cold began to take its toll. Her hands and feet lost feeling. She coughed up blood, and her consciousness wavered under the relentless struggle. Then, just as her strength seemed to be reaching its limit, the snowstorm returned with a vengeance, forcing her to seek shelter in a hollow tree infested with spiders, where she spent 2 nights barely recovering enough energy to continue. By this point, she had exhausted her only food source, the green tomatoes she had brought with her, and survival felt almost impossible. Yet on December 5th, 6 days after being stranded in the merciless wilderness, Paula made a final desperate crawl forward, driven by the faintest spark of hope. That is when she stumbled upon the snow-covered body of Rod, who had likely succumbed to hypothermia just hours after leaving to find help. The sight was devastating, but it also renewed her determination. She knew she could not afford to stop. Rescue efforts had been underway since the night they disappeared, but no one had known about their detour to Burnside Lake, and the harsh weather had made aerial searches impossible. Fortunately, Paula's brother, Gary, familiar with their previous summer visits to the lake, went to check the area on December 5th and found her crawling along the road, dangerously close to death. Rain had begun to fall, and even a delay of a few minutes could have cost her life. He rushed her to a nearby hospital where she was treated for first-degree frostbite, and though she had endured nearly a week of unimaginable suffering, Paula survived. She has since fully recovered and now lives safely with her family and children. Aquatic Addiction is a channel made specifically for this video, where the creator experienced a terrifying near-death moment that turned a simple dive into a full-blown survival situation. While diving in the Gulf of Mexico, he suddenly suffered a shallow water blackout, a dangerous condition that can happen even to the most experienced divers. Against all odds, he managed to regain consciousness on his own. Take a look. A shallow water blackout happens when a diver loses consciousness due to hypoxia. Basically, the brain runs out of oxygen during a dive. It's called a shallow water blackout because it usually occurs just below the surface or right at the surface, often without any warning, even for the most experienced divers. The blackout itself isn't immediately deadly. At first, the body senses it's underwater and reflexively closes the airway to keep water out of the lungs. But if no one is there to see or rescue the diver, the body eventually relaxes these protective muscles to preserve the brain's last supply of oxygen. That's when water can enter the lungs, leading to drowning. What happened to him is incredibly rare. He was able to wake up on his own, and that's nothing short of a miracle. This is exactly why diving with a buddy is so important. It's estimated that over 100 free divers die every year from drowning after blackouts, and the real number is probably much higher. Having even one friend watching you closely can be the difference between surviving and becoming part of that statistic. Now, if you got here, that means you like what you're seeing, right? So how about hitting that subscribe and like buttons, and if you truly enjoy it, you might as well hype the video and click the bell icon to be notified when I post. Also, take a look at this awesome merch. Maybe you'll like something. It was June 3rd, 2018, when Luis Roldan was in Guatemala near the Volcán de Fuego, one of the most active volcanoes in the world, located about 27 miles from Guatemala City. He was simply walking along the side of the road when a sudden, deafening explosion shook the air. At first, he could see a small plume of smoke and assumed it was just a minor eruption. He pulled out his camera to start recording, but what began as a seemingly ordinary event quickly turned into a full-blown survival situation. The ash from the volcano rapidly grew heavier and thicker, covering everything in sight and leaving Luis struggling to stay safe in the unfolding chaos.
Corran, corran.
If you got here, comment the word situation.
Ala, miren, ala, sí, lo mató bastante. Híjole. Pero aquí no llega. Hoy sí se pasó el... Sí, se pasó de veras, miren. Ahí viene, ahí viene. Por el humo, sí, no. Híjole. Están temblando los alambres. Ay, no.
¡Vamos! ¡Dale! ¡A un lado! ¡A un lado! ¡Despacio, Simón! ¡Dale despacio, hombre, que el carro no nos alcanza! ¡No la rampa!
He stayed there for a few moments, thinking the ash wouldn't reach him, but it was spreading far faster than anyone could have anticipated. People around him were running, desperate to get to safety, and then some cars speeding away stopped to pick him up. They got him out, just in time. When he looked back, he saw a massive, choking cloud of ash. Ash this thick is extremely dangerous to breathe, and being so close to the eruption, it was almost certainly scorching hot as well. Luckily, the people who helped him didn't leave anyone behind, but despite that, nearly 200 people were confirmed dead in the disaster. On April 9th, 2015, Clem Schultz was at his home in Fairdale, Illinois, with his wife Geraldine, or Jerry. She called him into the kitchen and told him to look outside. When he glanced through the window, he saw a massive tornado forming in the distance. At first, it didn't seem like it was heading their way, and he believed it might just pass by without hitting them. Gary stayed in the kitchen while Clem ran upstairs to grab some lanterns. From the upstairs window, he decided to record the storm, assuming it would pass by without hitting their neighborhood. What he captured, however, was far more terrifying than expected. The video shows a massive, black, monster-like tornado barreling straight toward them, a scene both horrifying and unforgettable. Take a look. Here's a small but important fact about tornadoes. If a tornado doesn't seem to be moving, it's actually heading straight toward you. By the time Clem realized how close it was already too late. He told the Daily Herald that he didn't have enough time to get back downstairs to the kitchen where his wife was, and going into the cellar, barely the size of a furnace, wouldn't have helped. The rest of the video captures the tornado making direct impact, hitting their home with full force. The recording abruptly went black, and it stopped. Against all odds, Clem somehow survived. He told the newspaper that he had been carried along with debris from the collapsing chimney and lost his grip on the phone. He became tangled in a bedsheet and was eventually buried under rubble. A neighbor came to his rescue, digging him out and carefully sitting him on one of the house's beams. The neighbor warned him not to look down. When Clem asked why, he was told the devastating truth. His wife was beneath him, gone. A lost photograph of the couple later surfaced 35 miles away in the town of Harvard, carried there by the storm. The picture, taken around 1980 for a church directory, shows Clem with his wife, Geraldine. Schultz had feared their dog, Missy, shared the same fate, but thankfully she was found by the family after an extensive search. Today, Clem finds comfort in his white shepherd and refuses to let anyone near her. Hearing about a tornado like that and realizing the sheer force it carries truly makes my skin crawl. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed these kinds of videos, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. You can also turn on the bell so you'll get notified whenever I post. And if you want to keep watching, click on one of the videos on the screen. I'm sure you'll enjoy those too.